Here we are, we're back looking at the gas stove top again. It's 1 or 2 weeks later. There's been some calamity in the Bondi scrapper household with one of the members breaking a wrist. They're on the mend, thank goodness, but it does slow things down a bit. And here we have on this side the cheapy gas cooktop. On this side, the more expensive one. What brands were they? I think that one was Dolce or something like that, and that one might have been a Smeg, possibly. I can't remember. Anyway, let's get some order and logic in here and start scrapping it out. And the first thing, coming over here to the more expensive one, here's the connector where the mains power comes into the unit and then gets distributed to that, which is a form of capacitor as far as I can work out. It's an igniter. It gets distributed to that, and then the power, let's come back a bit, the power comes around through, here we are. These are the ones that go into the incoming power. They go to this fella here. This fella here comes out 4 ways and comes over to where our gas knobs are. The gas knobs, you press them down, and we've already thrown the knobs out because they were just crap plastic. This spring gives it a nice, this spring gives it a nice feel, and as you can see, pushes down on that, and when we pull that apart eventually, you'll see that that makes a connection between those wires. The 4 gas knobs are daisy chained so that no matter which one you make the connection on, it comes back through into this, I'll call it a capacitor. Whoa, just press the stove that works. Presses that, and then we spark at the gas hobs. And all 4 spark at once, so no matter which one of these you press down, all 4 will spark. Anyway, let's get the wiring away, and that's on this one very easy. It's just, they all just kind of lift up. And here's a little clue. If you're pressing down one of these and only one of these is failing to make these spark, then the problem is in this daisy chain. So it'll be, if this one here is the one you press down and we don't get a spark, the problem will be in this switch here. But if all 4 are failing to work, the problem is in the igniter. And I worked that out on this one because that's what it was failing to do. That was why I actually picked up a couple of these stoves, was to get a new daisy chain. And it turned out to be the igniter, and I swapped that over, and it's working like a brand new one. So that's the Smeg, that's how it works. This one, the cheapie, the Dolce, slightly different. You have to turn on the gas and then press an igniter button on this thing, and all the wires go out, etc, etc. Here's the power incoming. I'm going to chop that off there because I can reuse this plug at a later date if needs be on something else. I'm going to disconnect that there. There'll be a little bit of brass in that chocolate block there. There'll be a brass screw there where the earth wire grounds out on the chassis. So let's get started on that. Let's get rid of some wires. I'm not going to show you that. I'm just going to snip away, and then we'll get a bit more logic into what we've got here. So that's most of the wiring stripped down. Things of interest. Let's start with the cheapie first. As you can see, it looks very clean from what we've got, and that is because there is only one wire running to the gas burners. And well, that's another thing of interest, is that there is the wok burner on this one. It's quite small compared to, well, there's my hand just there. There's the wok burner on the other one. It's much bigger, therefore more gas, therefore more heat. But I bet on the surface, I bet up the top where we could all see, I bet they both look exactly the same, and you're wondering why the cheap one just wasn't doing your stir fry properly. So that's an interesting one. So far out of here we have got a little pile of steel. There's the igniter thing. I pulled the back of it off. There's not much in it. I'm pretty sure that it's a capacitor in there of some description. It's a tiny bit of wire. There's their brass, which is not too bad. That may or may not be a little relay, maybe. Not much else there. So you can do with that as you will. Of interest is that all the connectors are brass, unlike the expensive one where most of them are steel. Bit of clean brass there, including the ground nut, and a little bit of, well, that'll be the same on both. That's the supply wire, and the wire on the inside, there's a little bit of wire on the inside. It'll all go in as low grade insulated. Coming across, all that stuff there is all just ferrous steel. I'll be keeping that igniter for my stove in case the second-hand one I threw in there fails. There is the one bit of brass that's come out of the expensive one. So obviously the beam counters have been there, the very special engineers as well that come in and try and work out how to pull as much cost out of manufacture as possible. And then we've got this bit of low-grade insulated copper wire. I'm assuming it's copper. And there are the little switches, let's call them, for the igniters. And I pulled one apart because there's not much in there. And so I'm going to put that in as attachment wire. It's got that one tiny little there, which I'm pretty sure might actually be ferrous. And it's got those two connectors, and that's the size of it. So for the weight, etc., etc., throw it in as connection wire, and we just dropped one bit on the floor. That's good, I'll get that later. Yeah, put it in as attachment wire, and you'll get probably just as many. It's only worth a few cents anyway, so do that. Now, for those in the know about gas appliances, here's where I have a lack of understanding of these things. This one here, as you can see, fairly clean, not too much happening. All it does is we've got our gas taps there, and they supply the gas to the burner. And just out of interest, when we pull it apart, the nut is steel, the pipe is aluminium, another steel nut. On this one, coming from the gas taps, we have this line, and I'm assuming it's hollow because it's got a nut there, and it comes through into that item there, which I thought was some type of earth. Now maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I have no idea, and if you do, if you know how it works, leave your answer in the comments, please, because I have no idea. And then we have a similar arrangement going to the wok cooker, the big one that lets out lots of heat, and but it's got two lines, and they both come into the same bit, which is this pointy thing there. So I've got no idea what they do, but as you can see, one of them where it comes in, it's just soldered on the side. It's almost like an earth. So I really don't know what that is. I'm going to chop them in half and see what happens. So that's that section taken apart, and a couple of little bits of ferrous steel retainers where it joined onto the gas hob part, and the bit going to the wok burner, that was just solid copper wire. It's, as far as I can tell, it's an earth of some description. Some brass ferrules, I guess they are, connector nuts. A bit of dirty copper, that's the bit that was sticking out of there, just there. But copper with a bit of solder on it, so I'm calling it dirty copper. It's very soft, that's how I could tell it was copper. Some more little copper ends, they can all kind of go in together with these ones, I guess. And and the wire that's got the sheath on it, if you get the sheath and pull it back, it'll concertina up like that. And it has been kind of soldered on the end, so you've got to cut it just beyond the solder. That'll come back. That'll reveal what appears to be wire. And again, if you get in there with, some of it will just peel back, like concertina back, but otherwise you're going to have to get into it with the knife. And then that reveals this, and that is copper wire. So a solid copper wire. So it's up to you whether you just throw that in for the amount that's there, throw it all in with your low-grade insulated copper wire, or whether you bother to strip it back. So that's the bit with the shroud on it. It's like a cotton or possibly even a fireproof type of thing. So that's what we get so far. The next bit is to remove the burners, I guess. Pretty simple. Here's the cheapie, and all it is a nut at that end and a nut at that end. And here's the expensive one. It's got a nut where the burner is, but down here where the valve is, it's just a little clip, a little over center clip. So you just get your finger under it like that and fling it across the room. Give it a wiggle like that, and it'll come out. And there is probably, I'm guessing, not there, but maybe in there, if we could see, which we can't. I'd almost guarantee there is an O-ring of some description in there. So let's get that pulled apart and we'll go from there. Alright, that's the pipes off. Again, two very different methods of manufacture. The cheapie, well, they're both aluminium pipes with iron nuts on them, and the cheapie just kind of compresses the end of the pipe so that it makes a sealing surface up this end, kind of similar, but man, this end's on so tight you can't move it. Up to you. You can either get the grinding wheel out or the hacksaw, cut there, get rid of the iron, keep the aluminium, or you can throw that into the irony aluminium box, and yeah, it's up to you, I guess. These longer ones might be more worthwhile stripping down, but I'm a little bit inclined to just throw these into the irony aluminium box at the moment, because you've got to cut them with a grinder or something like that. If you just try and snip them with snips, they will flatten out, and then you still can't get the nut off because it won't slide over the flattened out wider bit. And the more expensive machine, well, as we said, we're pretty sure there'll be an O-ring on there because that just sat in the hole. Wait on, let's have a look. Let's get our little pick, and yeah, there we go, there's an O-ring. So that's how it seals up at the valve, at the regulation valve. And on the other end here, where it goes into the burner, there's a little brass ferrule. And I've found, if you really want to recover that, if you squeeze it that way, and then squeeze it on the 90-degree mark, squeeze it back again, it will fail and fracture, and you'll get 2 or 3 pieces of brass out of it. And then again, you can either put it in with your irony aluminium, or proceed to cut it even more to separate the aluminium from the iron. So what's next? What have we got next? Oh, and while I was doing that, because I had to hold on to these burners with the multi-grips, that bit of the burner broke off because the aluminium was a little bit corroded, and there's another screw there, so I'll probably try and break that off downstairs rather than drill the screw out, and then that'll give me alloy here. I've still got to take the brass nozzle out of there. That's what regulates the amount of gas that comes out. That just screws out, and then that'll be done. While I was doing it, the igniters, they came out as well. They were held in by a little mild steel clip, but I pulled those out at the same time on this side. They can go into the steel bin, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, all we've got to do with the cheapie to finish cleaning it up is get rid of any screws that sheared off while we were dismantling it and get rid of the brass out of there. So I might do that one very quickly. So that's the burners done, more or less. The cheapie, what did we get from that? Four little brass jets, and the burners are alloy, cast alloy, and as you can see on that one there, it's still got a screw in it. A couple of the others are broken off. I just managed to do it with side cutters. That one there I'll take downstairs and give it a belt with a hammer in the vise. That'll break that off, or you throw it in as irony aluminium. The Smeg, did we say it was a Smeg or a Mealy? Whatever, the expensive one. They were all the mounting brackets for the burners. They weren't just hanging in space like the other ones, so all the mounting brackets off, they're just mild steel. Whole heap of mild steel screws. The igniters, I'm just throwing in as in with the mild steel bin. They may or may not have a copper core in them or something like that, who knows. Don't really care, too hard to work out. We also got that tiny bit of stainless steel that was, where are we? There, that was sitting there on the wok burner, and as you can see, there's still a brass jet there that's got to come out, but I can't get to it with any of the butcher's tools that I've got up here at the moment. It just needs a little ring spanner or an open ender or something like that, and that'll pop out. And in the side of it there is a brass bung, and that needs an Allen key to get that out. Again, that's downstairs, and oh, let's have a look at the weather because it's just such a lovely day. Look at that. Yeah, it's raining, it's windy, it's, close the door, pretty horrible. So that's not a very good Sat day, but I guess this morning was really great until about 10 o'clock. Anyway, let's come back and have a look. So we've got that and that. Nothing exciting to write home about. Next stage, which I'm not even sure I'll do today, is to pull these valves apart. And what I would recommend you do is, while it's still mounted on this manifold, like that you undo these screws, because the manifold will provide a good strong base to hold everything steady rather than trying to hold that valve in your hand while you undo the screws. And I've just loosened them off just then, and I hooked into it with the little Bosch IXO and a very, very cheap Phillips head screwdriver, and just loosened all those ones off. I've done the same there for the ones I can get to, except for these ones that have got this bracket in the way, and I've just loosened off these joiners there, which is, what part was that? That were those earthing type devices, which I still don't know what they do, but you undo that. They're alloy, nice aluminium. And what's this thing do? What do we got here? This is, I still have no idea. Possibly this is some type of valve so that if the gas is on and it hasn't ignited, it stops the gas flow? I don't know. I really don't know. Might be one of the many things that I can add to that list of things that I don't know. So this here, I've pulled one of these apart before, and under that plastic there is a bit of this copper coil. So that makes me think that it's something electronic, but there was no electrics coming into it. So again, if you know what it's all about, comments below, please educate me. So yeah, all those. So a little bit of aluminium. I mean, aluminium, it's the metal of disappointment because there's nothing there. There's like 5 grams each. So it's interesting on this expensive one where they're spending money and where they're trying to save money. Makes you wonder some of the logic there, but you've got to stay competitive in the market, I guess. Right, I'm going to, I've got 15 minutes up my sleeve, so I'm going to pull the rest of these valves off, pull the lids off. Wait on, here we are. Let's put get the XO working, and if we get in there, do the other one. And this is interesting when you pull these apart and start pulling the valves apart. The smell of, I'll say it's the smell of gas, but I get a feeling that it's actually the smell of that's alloy as well. But I get a feeling it's the smell of the chemical they put into natural gas to make natural gas smell when there's a gas leak. Let's see, are these? Yep, they're just mild steel screws. Put them over there in the mild steel pile, and if you just turn that, and out that comes. So I'm assuming somewhere along the line we have to cut that shaft. Let's try and get that in focus. So we'll cut that shaft in order to get rid of that spring. That spring will be steel. What do we got up there? Yeah, somehow or another they've mounted that spring on that steel shaft. Who knows how? I don't. So we'll just be a bit bodge, and we'll just slice it through there with the side cutters. Slice it through so it's long enough so it's a decent bit of brass, because this is all brass. So far that's that, all the bonnets, top hats, whatever you want to call them, the valve mechanism, that's all brass, so that's where your money is in this. So all the rest of it, you could get away with not doing all that faffing around that I've done, and put an awful lot of that in as irony aluminium, and you'd get away with that. And hey, I don't think you'd lose out on a great deal of money, and you'd save a lot of time. Now here's the valves, and you can see in the valves there's this little flathead screw. When you undo that, it comes out like that, and you can see the little pink bit just under my fingernail. That's a little O-ring. You need to get a little pick or something like that and get rid of that O-ring if you want to make this clean brass, and if you've got a conscience. I guess you could just put it in like that to your scrap metal dealer if you're that way inclined. That's up to you, I guess. So I'm just going to do that, all those, back in a minute. Now we're on the home straight, and all we've got to do is get our little torque, undo the valve. This little top fella is mild steel. Here's our valve, and that, as far as I can, well, no, it's not a clean valve, because, where are we? Right there under my thumb tip is a ball bearing, a steel ball bearing. And what I did last time was I just got out an angle grinder, and I just came in on an angle like that, whacked a screwdriver in there, prised it out, job done. And that there is a good 200 grams, and just make sure that you get the O-ring off. But that's got a bit of weight to it, which is what we're after. That's the prize. And at the moment, brass is what, $5.50, $6 a kilo. So there's probably around about a kilo of brass, of clean brass, premium brass, as they like to call it at the moment. Brass that hasn't got any type of contaminants, no rubber, no this, no that, no the other. And yeah, if you didn't want to be as anal as what I am, you could just throw it in as normal mixed brass, I guess, and get a little bit less for it. That's up to you. I'm going to do the rest of these, get them over and done with. Okay, so the big one, that's still got a ball bearing in it, but it doesn't weigh much. That. What else made up this system? One of them. There's probably a couple of other little minor things, but they won't make much difference. 174 grams, 175 grams, let's call it. And what, so 175 and 175 gives us 350 plus double that again, 700. So there's about 700 grams of brass there. It's about $6 a kilogram. So about what's that, about $4.50, I guess. And the cheap machine has only got very little in there, very simple valves. All you got to do, undo the 2 Phillips head screws off the top. The steel bonnet, not alloy, separates from the spindle, and when you pull it apart, there's the valve body, there's the spindle there, there's this cone-shaped device. I don't know what you'd call that, but that's obviously assists in regulating the amount of gas that goes through that valve. And there's a little orifice, I guess it is, down the middle of that one that has an O-ring on it. Take it off, leave it on, that's up to you. I take mine off. And there's a lousy 78 grams of brass there. So double that, that's 150. Double that again is 300. So third of 6, it's got just under $2 worth of brass there for the whole 4 valves. So not terrific. It's up to you just how far you go into these things, or whether you just throw them on the shred pile or whatever. I'm going to finish doing this. I've got a little bit more time up my sleeve. There is a couple of other little extra things that you'll get. There's some brass fittings here. You can pull that hose apart. Usually these the nut on the end is brass, maybe not in this case. And yeah, that's the tale of the expensive gas cooktop and the cheap gas cooktop. And certainly when you're scrapping them, well, one's going to give you, I guess, all up around about, gosh, not much, $5-6. And the other one is going to give you 2 or 3. Happy days. Thanks for watching. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. Don't like it, 2 thumbs down. Subscribe, that's always good. But the thumbs up, that's the one that the YouTube algorithm really likes for some reason. So yeah, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.